Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is going to be another video for my Halloween series. It is the second legend I promised to share with you, and this is a legend that Venezuela shares with other South American countries as well as with Spain and Italy. For those who have watched the first video of this series, the disclaimer in that video applies to this video as well. Again, the purpose of this video is to entertain you. I'm not trying to convince you to believe in the supernatural. I respect your beliefs, and I'm doing this just to share a piece of my culture with you. So without further ado, let's begin. So the Anima Sola is a votive image, which means that people light candles to her and ask her for things in exchange for an offering. The image depicts a chained woman burning in the flames of the purgatory. There are two different versions of this legend. One comes from the Roman Catholic tradition and the other comes from Spiritism. For those who don't know, there's a lot of religious syncretism happening in South America. So that's the reason why we have different versions of the same legends, especially when it comes to legends related to religion. So in the Catholic tradition, the Anima Sola was originally a woman called Maria Celestina Abdenago, and she was part of a group of women who will give water to men who were to be crucified. Allegedly, Maria Celestina refused to give water to Jesus, and that's the reason why she was punished by burning eternally in the flames of the purgatory. Now, in the Spiritist tradition, the story of the Anima Sola is about unrequited love. According to this version, she sold her soul in exchange for love. And her punishment, again, is to burn eternally in the flames of the purgatory. But she also has to listen to the pleas of other women who want to do the same that she did. Now, this is not a spirit that you will see. It is a spirit that you will hear if you are to encounter her. Now, as I did in my previous video, I'm going to share with you some of my family experiences and encounters with the Anima Sola. Now, I personally think that I have never encountered the Anima Sola. I grew up being afraid of her because my mother was terrified of this image. I never understood why. She never told me the reasons why. She only used to say that she was very evil and that if you were to light a candle to her or to ask her for something, you will lose so much more in the bargain. What she means with this is that if you were to ask her for, let's say, money, perhaps you would get your money, but someone in your family would die. So basically, she said that tragedies happen whenever you ask her for things. I also remember my grandmother telling me that the animas used to make themselves present by whistling. They don't whistle the same way that the whistler does. This whistle is very different, it's very short. I think the conversation began because it was very late. It was like 1 or 2 a.m. and I was watching TV with my grandma and we heard a whistle and she was very alarmed. And she said that that was the whistle of a wandering soul. Now, I didn't think this was the Anima Sola because as far as I knew, my grandmother didn't used to light candles to her. But although I consider that I have never encountered the Anima Sola, in preparation for this video, I asked my mother why she was so afraid of the Anima Sola and if she knew some family story related to the Anima Sola. My mother replied that when she was 12 years old, my grandmother used to light candles for the Anima Sola. This was very shocking to me because my grandmother is extremely Catholic and she is the type of Catholic that only lights candles for the saints and the angels and God. She doesn't light candles for any other entities. And again, me and my grandmother are very close and I didn't know that she used to do this. So my mother said that sometimes she had to go home from school to change her clothes and go back to school. But sometimes when she went back home, the house was alone, there was no one there. And she felt very afraid and she said that she used to hear voices, like a lot of people in a room whispering or praying. That's her experience. And she felt at that time that it was the Anima Sola. So after my mother told me this story, I texted my grandmother and I asked her what was her experience with the Anima Sola, and that my mother had told me that she lighted candles for the Anima Sola. My grandmother replied that she lighted candles for the Anima Sola because she was afraid that if she didn't do it, she was going to be punished. Apparently, my great-grandmother was very devoted to the Anima Sola, and she used to light a candle every night for the Anima Sola. My grandmother thought that if she didn't continue this tradition, she was going to be punished. In Venezuela, many people believe that once you start lighting candles for the animas, you cannot stop. Because if you stop, they are going to haunt you. So that was why my grandmother was afraid, and she would light candles because she felt threatened. I think this tells us a lot about this entity and the fear she elicits from people. My grandmother also believes that her sister died because she was lighting candles to the Anima Sola. So she thinks that either way she was punished at the end. And after her sister died, that's when she stopped lighting candles for this entity. Okay, so the story of my aunt. So my aunt grew up with my great-grandmother. She didn't want to live with my grandmother, so she decided to stay with my great-grandmother in this little village. When she was a child, around 9 or 10 years old, my great-grandmother used to send her sometimes, like the weekends, to my great-great-grandmother's house, which was in the same little village. Now, just so you know, my great-great-grandmother died in 2000. So I got to meet her and spend some time with her. If you're wondering how's that possible, well, we believe she was 108 years old. She was basically born at the end of the 19th century and she died in the year 2000. And also, my great-great-grandmother had my great-grandmother at a young age. My great-grandmother had my grandmother at a young age, and my grandmother had my mother at a young age. So that's the reason why all these grandmothers were still alive. Now, going back to the tale. My aunt goes to stay with my great-great-grandmother, and it's time to go to bed, and they were talking, and my aunt asked her if the Anima Sola was a wicked spirit. My great-great-grandmother replied that she is not wicked, but that people use her for evil purposes and make her wicked. So my aunt says that she can hear the Anima Sola. And my great-grandmother replies that not everyone can hear her, only a few people can, and those are people who inherited that ability that was passed from generation to generation. My great-great-grandmother and my aunt go to bed, and in the middle of the night they both hear a whistle, and they wake up, and my aunt says, Grandma, is the Anima Sola. And my great-great-grandmother tells her, do you hear her? And she's like, and my aunt says that yes, that she heard her. So my great-grandmother says, oh, so it is true that you can hear her. My great-great-grandmother gets out of bed and sits in front of her altar and starts praying. My aunt asks her, why was she praying? And my great-great-grandmother replied that it was because her sister had died. My aunt asked her, how do you know that? She said that when the Anima Sola whistles, it is not to scare you, but to alert you. And in this case, the Anima Sola was telling them about the death of my great-great-grandmother's sister. Half an hour goes by, and someone knocks at the door. Again, it was very late. They opened the door, and it was a family member bearing the news of my great-great-grandmother's sister's death. Indeed, my aunt went with my great-grandmother to the other house to prepare the body for the funeral. So that was the Anima Sola story. Shoutouts to my whole family for helping me with this video. Their experiences definitely made it much more interesting to me. Hearing my great-great-grandmother's story was very touching for me because in a way I feel like I'm able to preserve one of her memories in this channel. So that makes me really happy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you have ever experienced paranormal activity. Let this be a safe place for everyone to tell their paranormal experiences without being afraid of feeling silly. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.